Hi students, how are you all? Hope all of you are fine. Please follow the instructions, wear mask and sanitize your hands, maintain social distance. Coming to myself, I am K. Prasanna Nagadevi, lecturer in the Department of Commerce in BRR and GKR Chambers Degree College, Palakol. Coming to our subject is business law, and it is one of the core subject for second BCom vocational students in their fourth semester. Business law consists of 5 units. The first unit is related with the introduction part regarding business law and contracts, in which we discuss about what are the essential elements of a valid contract and what are the different types of contracts. The second unit is consists of 3 elements that are offer, acceptance and consideration and their essential elements. And the third unit, the elements are capacity of the parties, like minor contracts and their regulations and rules regarding entering into a contract, contingent contracts, breach of contracts, discharge of contracts. And the fourth unit is the Sale of Goods Act 1930. In that we will discuss about what is a sale and agreement to sell, what are the difference between them, and the implied conditions and warranties. In the fifth unit, it is purely cyber law topics, safety mechanisms, contractual procedures, and when we are doing the contracts in the electronic form. This is the syllabus as per the university guidelines. In today's session, we are going to discuss about the topic of the first unit is what are the different sources of business law, from where we are grabbing the law rules. Right? Before going to know that, first we have to know what is a law is. A law means a set of rules. Law means a set of rules. These rules are framed to regulate and to protect the conduct of the persons. Right? So, broadly speaking, law may be defined as the rules of conduct recognized and enforced by the state to control and regulate the conduct of people, to protect their property and contractual rights with a view to securing justice, peaceful living and social security. Simply we will say that law is a set of rules. Why we arrange those rules? Those rules are arranged to protect the property and contractual rights. Why we are doing like that? To get justice and peaceful living of the society. And here the value of the societies are keeps on changing, right? So like that the law also changes according to the requirements of the society. Since the value system of the society keeps on changing, the law also keeps on changing according to the changing requirement of the society. So there are several branches of law, like international law, constitutional law, criminal law, civil law. Each branch of the law will regulate their particular field of activities. So, what is the need to know the law? One should know the law which he is subject, because ignorance of law is no excuse. We should know about the law at which we are surviving, because in the eyes of law, ignorance of law is no excuse. For example, if X caught traveling in a train without ticket, he cannot plead that he was not aware of the rule regarding the purchase of ticket and therefore he may be excused. Right? We all know that when we are traveling by train, we have to take a train ticket for that journey. If you are not taken the ticket and if you caught by the ticket collector, then you said that I don't know regarding this rule. He is excuses you? No, he will fine you. So ignorance of law is no excuse. Even if you are driving without a license, if you caught by the traffic police, then also you have to pay the fine towards the department, because here the ignorance of law is no excuse. Then what is a mercantile law or a commercial law? Here mercantile law, commercial law or business law, all these are one and the same. Here, mercantile law is not a separate branch of law. It is not a separate branch. It is the branch of civil law which deals with the rights and obligations of mercantile persons arising out of mercantile transactions. Here, mercantile persons means the business persons, the persons who are engaged in the business transactions, those are called as mercantile persons. Here it deals with the rights and obligations of those mercantile persons which arising out of mercantile transactions. It protects the rights of business person which arises out of the business transactions in respect of mercantile property, which means the business property. Right? Then, being a business students or being a commerce students, you should know the law which prevails or which governs the business organizations. Here, different laws are there. And if you are a businessman, you are going to enter into a different contracts with other persons. You may enter into a contract with suppliers, or you may enter into a contract with dealers, or you may enter into your contract with sub-partners. All these elements are regulated and protected by the mercantile law or business law. It includes the laws of various contracts, partnership, companies, negotiable instruments, insurance, carriage of goods. Carriage of goods is nothing but transportation of goods and arbitration. All these will included in the business law. And next one, what are the sources of mercantile law? Actually, there are 4 sources for Indian mercantile law. The first one is English mercantile law, and the second one is Indian statute law, and the third one is judicial decisions, and the fourth one is customs and usages. First one, English mercantile law. In India, mercantile law is basically on the adoption of the English law with some modifications and reservations which are necessitated by the peculiar conditions prevailing in India. We mostly adopted the rules which are related to the English mercantile law because those people ruled us several years. So most of the elements we grabbed from English mercantile law, and some of those elements are changed according to our prevailing situations in India. Then first one, English mercantile law. English laws are the primary sources of the Indian mercantile law. English laws are based on customs and usages of merchants in England. So the customs and usages of the business persons of the England will base for the English law. That English law is one of the base for the Indian mercantile law. And the second one is Indian statute law. Here Indian statute law, the laws are made in the parliament, right? So the various acts passed by the Indian legislature are the main source of mercantile law in India. So Indian legislature has passed several acts. Some of acts we already know. that are Indian Contract Act 1872, the Sale of Goods Act 1930, Indian Partnership Act 1932, the Negotiable Instruments Act 1881 and the Companies Act 1956. These acts are passed by the Indian legislature. So, the information which prevails in these acts also the base for the business law. And next one, judicial decisions. Here, judicial decisions, which means the decisions which are given by the sitting judges, will also consider when we are giving an announcement or the final decision. Like the past judicial decision of the English courts and Indian courts are one of the sources of the law. Past judicial decisions, which means when the decisions are taken at the time of historical, right, wherever the law is silent on a point, which means if there is no such representation regarding that point, then the judge has to decide the case according to the principle of equity, justice and good conscience. If there is no such conditions to complete the decision, then here the judge may use his principle of equity, justice to all and good conscience as the base for the decision. So, the past judicial decisions are followed by the courts while deciding similar cases before them. And next one, customs and usages. Here, these customs and usages will place a vital role for the mercantile laws, because the customs and usages of trade are also one of the source of mercantile law in India. These customs and usages govern the merchants of trade in their dealings with each other. Some acts passed by the Indian legislature recognizes the importance of the such customs and usages. So, simply these four are the sources of Indian business law. What are they? English mercantile law, Indian statute law, judicial decisions and customs and usages of the traders. Right. Then we are going to know about what is a contract. Already I told you that we will enter into a contract with different persons. So, the law of contract is contained in the Indian Contract Act. So, then when the Indian Contract Act was made in 1872, so what are the elements that covers in Indian Contract Act? Or it deals with the general principles of law governing all contracts. It deals with the general principles of law governing all contracts. And next one, it covers the special provisions relating to the special contracts like bailment 1872 with a pledge, indemnity, guarantee and agency. So, all these elements will come under the special provisions. So, the Contract Act comprises the general principles of all the contracts and the special provisions relating to the special contracts. Both the elements will come under Indian Contract Act. And the second point, the law of contract is applicable not only to business but all day-to-day personal dealings. So, what we think that it is a contract act and it is a business law. So, it is explains the contracts which are taken in the businesses only. So, it is not the right thing. Here what? Our day-to-day personal dealings will also comes under the Contract Act. Even each one of us enters into a number of contracts from sunrise to sunset. Each one of us. Right. For example, when you purchase a newspaper, you enter into a contract with a vendor of newspaper. When you purchase a milk, you enter a contract with a milkman. These are the day-to-day activities of us. But we are entering into the contract with a newspaper vendor, and we are entering into a contract with a milkman, even we are purchasing the milk, right? So he gives us the milk and we are paying for money. He gives us a newspaper and we are paying for that newspaper. So there is a contract between us. Then, what is the contract? According to Indian Contract Act 1872, Section 2, subsection H, the Indian Contract Act defines contract like an agreement enforceable by law is called as a contract. Simply saying, an agreement which is enforceable by law is called as a contract. If we analyze this definition, there is two important elements. The first one is agreement and the second one is enforceability of an agreement. So, first of all, when we are entering into a contract, we have to make an agreement, and that agreement must be enforceable in the eyes of law. So, in the form of equation, we can define the contract equal to an agreement plus enforceability of the agreement. And here the question arises, what is an agreement? It is also defined in the Act, like according to Section 2, subsection E of the Indian Contract Act 1872, every promise and every set of promises forming the consideration for each other is an agreement. Once I repeat, every promise and every set of promises forming the consideration for each other is an agreement. Here, every promise and every set of promises, it has to make consideration for each other. For example, in an agreement there must be two parties at least. So the agreement has to give consideration for both the parties, right? So here the question arises, what is a promise is? So then, what is the promise? According to Section 2, subsection B of the Indian Contract Act 1872, a proposal when accepted becomes a promise. A proposal when accepted becomes a promise. Here proposal means offer. Already I told you that in agreement there should be two parties. One party may make proposal and other party has to accept that proposal in case his wish. For example, X offers to sell his car for 1 lakh rupees to Y. Y accepts this offer. This offer after acceptance becomes promise. Here what happens in this example? X offering his car to Y for the amount of 1 lakh. Then Y accept this offer, right? So after acceptance of offer, it becomes the promise, and that promise is treated as an agreement between X and Y. In other words, an agreement consists of an offer by one party and its acceptance by the other is called as an agreement. So if in the form of equation, it can be shown as under, like agreement is equal to offer plus acceptance. Here offer means proposal and acceptance of offer nothing but acceptance to proposal, right? Then the first part of the definition is completed. What is the definition of contract? An agreement which is enforceable by law is called as agreement. So the first part is agreement and the second part is enforceability of an agreement. Here an agreement is said to be enforceable by law if it creates a legal obligation. So when it's said to be enforceable, when it creates some legal obligation to the parties. In other words, the parties to an agreement must be bound to perform their promises, and in case of default by either of them must intend to sue. We can sue on the other party if he may default the contract. That is called enforceability. For example, X offers to sell his car to Y for $1 lakh. Y accepts this offer. Such an agreement between X and Y is a contract because it creates legal obligation. In this agreement, if X refuses to sell or Y refuses to pay, the other party can file suit in the court of law for the breach of contract. So, there must be an agreement, and that agreement must be enforceable by law. We can define that in like chart. See this contract, and two elements are there: agreement, enforceability of an agreement. And agreement, it consists of two elements, right? Offer and acceptance. An offer which accepted becomes promise, and that promise is known as agreement if it gives the consideration for the both the parties. And enforceability of an agreement which creates a legal obligation arising out of an agreement. This point should be noted. So depending upon this definition, we can say that all contracts are agreements, but all agreements are not contracts. All contracts are agreements, but all agreements are not contracts. Like there are some agreement, social and domestic agreements. Social agreements are like if X invites Y to dinner, if Y is said yes but Y absent for the dinner, then X cannot sue on Y for not attending to dinner. So, the agreement between X and Y here is a social agreement, and it is not create any legal obligations. And domestic agreements it between the husband and wife. It will explained in the case like Balfour versus Balfour case, in which Mr. Balfour and Mrs. Balfour is there. Mr. Balfour promises to pay £30 to Mrs. Balfour every month. Because of some of the circumstances, Mr. Balfour is not in the condition to pay the amount. Here what happened, the Mrs. Balfour filed a case on Mr. Balfour for payment of money. But the court considered it is not a legal obligation arising agreement. It is a domestic agreement. But at that time, they are not in the favorable conditions even. So, social and domestic agreements are not treated as a contracts. So, all contracts are agreements, but all agreements are not contracts. So, in this session, we discussed about what are the different sources of business law and what is a contract and what is the definition of the contracts. Hope all of you are getting the class. Thank you.